Good evening and welcome. We'll call the regular board meeting for the Akron Public Schools Board of Education for March 12, 2018 to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Mrs. Baylor.
Here.
Mr. Bravo.
Here.
Mrs. Lasher.
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Reverend Walker.
Here. Present. Joining us this evening for the Pledge of Allegiance is Nyla Williams. Nyla Williams from Helen Arnold CLC. Nyla is an exemplary fourth grade student at Helen Arnold. She's a kind and compassionate girl who is an excellent role model for her peers. Nyla excels in reading and is in the gifted program. She has been on the honor roll with straight A's multiple times. Her favorite subjects are reading, math, art, music, and gym. In her free time, Nyla enjoys making slime, playing games, and watching videos. Her principal, LaMonica Davis, says, "It is a joy to have Nyla and her supportive parents as part of our Helen Arnold School family." Nyla, if you'll come up and join me and help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I brought with me my big brother, my grandpa, my nana, my dad, and my mother.
Thank you, Nyla. Please keep up the good work, and next time you make some slime, send some our way. Community and school reflections. Would anyone like to start?
I'll go ahead and start. I guess I only had two. A number of us attended the State of the City talk last week. There's some exciting things that the mayor said that's going to be going on with the city of Akron, and I look forward to all the things that is to come. So we're glad to have them as a partner and glad to be working with them. And it's always nice that Akron Public Schools has a good school district so that we can continue to attract good people to the city of Akron and Akron Public Schools. Also, some of us attended Harold K. Stubbs Award Dinner last Friday. There were about 5 Akron Public Schools students who received awards, scholarship awards. So it was really nice to see that Akron Public Schools students receiving scholarships to attend various schools, and they had some very high priorities. Even one that it really took me back is this gentleman wants to be the director of the FBI, and so that's a big position to be the director. And his goal was to be the director of the FBI. So we were glad to see our students there and receive those awards. And also, I wanted to apologize because I didn't get a chance to make it to the celebration the other morning with our superintendent, David James, staying here in Akron Public Schools. And I wanted to say congratulations, and we're glad that you're staying with us and continue to do the work that we do here at Akron Public Schools, because it is very important, not just for the city and all of us, but especially for our students. So thank you, and glad you're still here. Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition to the events that Mr. Alexander mentioned, which were wonderful, and our former school board colleague Veronica Sims, her daughter was one of the scholarship winners, so that was very nice to see. Congratulations to their family. I got to participate in Dr. Seuss's birthday at one school and Read Across America Day at another, both on the same day. So much fun. I was at Cyberling for Dr. Seuss's birthday and read to, I think it was second graders. fantastic class, had so much fun. Apparently they knew Dr. McWilliams Woods because they told me to tell her hi. It was Mrs. Fisher's class, and they do a cheer, and they said they gave her the same cheer. And I think we should have them come to board to do the cheer because it is something else. So they were fantastic. They were getting ready to also dress up and have a crazy dress-up day. So they were extremely excited to tell me everything they were going to be. So that was a lot of fun. And then later in the day, Mrs. Baylor and I were at Case for Read Across America Day. I got to read to the preschool. And then we got to walk around and judge all of the doors. And all the doors were decorated not only with the Dr. Seuss book, but the students contributed, and they also had to have something to do with the IB words of the month. So those were all worked in, really educational, fantastic to, one of the things I talked to their principal about was how wonderful it was to just be, as a board member, to not feel escorted around the building like, we only want you to see this part. It was please walk around, judge the doors, stick your heads in, talk to the students, and just how encouraging it was to see all the incredible learning that was going on that day. We did all get to see the new Case, staying on a Case kind of track right now, and walk through that building. It's going to be very exciting. Can't wait to have you all go to the open house for that. And then I think the highlight of my past 2 weeks was the experience that Reverend Walker, Mrs. Baylor, and I had when we got to talk to the students, the 5th grade students at Case, about security and safety in our schools and listen to what the children had to say. I think if there's one thing that has come out of the tragedy of Parkland, it is listening to our children and hearing what they have to say and hearing how very wise they are, because these are students who are in 5th grade who wanted to make sure that if they were going to do anything for the walkout, that they did it in a way that was considerate of the preschoolers, that was in a learning experience, that they laid it out in a way. I'm just thrilled with the way that Mr. Samsel and the rest of that team has worked with those students to prepare them. It was quite a grilling too. There were no easy questions. If you've watched the Facebook Live and gotten to take a look at that, they didn't let us off easy, and we don't want to be let off easy. We want our kids to feel safe. And anyone who thinks that children aren't thinking about this every day and that somehow Wednesday's walkout is a distraction to the educational process, no, what's been happening is a distraction to the educational process every single day of their lives, and they made that very clear to us. So I think we're very blessed to be led by the children of this district and how smart and considerate and thoughtful they are.
I wanted to add to that conversation about them being smart and very thoughtful and introspective, because they came up with the idea of releasing 17 balloons with all of the victims' names on it, and having 17 placards where they would have the names and things like that, that people who were driving by could see that. So, I mean, that was so thoughtful for them to do it. And as Ms. Mansfield said, they were coming with all sorts of things. Matter of fact, one of the young ladies, she just came up with a plan to do something right there on the spot. I mean, she was standing there and she was thinking of things to do, and it was a plan for the students to be challenged and tested on what they knew as far as if there was a crisis, how are you gonna know what to do? So she was going to lead the charge for that and inspire the other students to join in and help her with that initiative. I also participated in Read Across America. It's funny because I had a 4th grade class at Case, so I've been a Case person here lately. So, but it was really a great experience. The children were very engaged in the story and participated with questions, and some of the questions came from me and some of them came from them. But one interesting thing came up. is that movie Wonder. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it keeps coming up. It came up in the discussion when we were with the children. It came up in the Read Across America experience, and I mean the children are just in awe, and then they're taking lessons away from that with being different and how people bully you or they treat you differently, and how much courage it took for that young man to stand up to some of those things without doing some harm to someone else, and walking through that process, and they, it was a tough process to walk through. So also I attended a Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated luncheon, 110th year anniversary over at City of Joy. And I just wanted to mention with that, two of our APS students, two of our seniors received scholarships from that organization, and of which I am a part. So one was is a upcoming graduate from our STEM high school, and then the other is Akron Early College. So just say congratulations to those young ladies for jobs well done, and they had some very high GPA scores and things like that. So it's just a testament to the type of work that all of us do, including you guys, across the district, and making sure that our kids are properly prepared academically and experientially, here at Akron Public Schools. So thank you all for that.
My turn. Thank you. I attended a lot of what's been talked about at the table this evening. One program that hasn't been mentioned yet, but many of us were at, was the Women's Endowment Fund, 25th anniversary. And I got to tell people I was at a table with myself and 7 wonderful women. So I had a very good time at dinner that evening. But it was a great program. It's the first time I've ever been to the program. And I guess it sort of amazed myself. It's been 25 years, and I really don't know much about the program. I do now. And it's wonderful the things they're doing. So that was an excellent program. Briefly, I'll mention Soup Fest at Firestone High School. It just goes back when I was on their board, and it's been a wonderful program there, a fundraiser for the Firestone Instrumental Music Association for a number of years. It's always fun to go back and rekindle old friendships. But I wanted to spend most of my time anyways talking about, I went to Columbus for the OSBA Legislative Conference. And it was a good morning. We got to hear from Senator Matt Huffman. He gave the Senate perspective. We heard from John Patterson on the House perspective. And then we also had a sort of a key panel discussion with Senator Peggy Lehner and Andrew Brenner, who Senator Lehner's head of the Senate Education Committee. Representative Brenner is chair of the House Education and Career Readiness Committee, as they call it now. Spent a lot of time with those two. They talked about House Bill 512, which a lot of people are discussing today. I think it's interesting. I sort of got interested in that one specifically, hearing about who's at the table on that. And I actually went online and started reading the proponent perspective. And it's interesting how this House bill is sort of a battle between the joint vocational schools and K-12 schools. And I think it's also interesting on how secondary education is sort of silent on this, though it involves them. It's interesting. It looks like they're trying to, merge everything into a K through 16 type of, I don't know, committee, or I guess it'd be a committee and a seat at the governor's table. I've got mixed emotions on it. I don't necessarily like the power being taken away from the elected officials, but a lot of the opponent testimony basically admits there's problems with the way the 3 different parts of the state government with education sort of dysfunctional and not talking to each other as well. So it seems like the opponents are sort of wanting the status quo, which doesn't always necessarily work. But that was, to me, one of the most interesting things they talked about. The other one I highlighted was Senator Huffman, and House Bill 216, which he's working on, even though he's in the Senate. But it was interesting that bill has to do with teacher evaluations and testing of students and things of that nature. And I liked his perspective from the standpoint, he talked about how from a testing standpoint of students, it's one size fits all. It has to be through automation. And he says our policy in the state right now is more friendly to the vendors than it is to the students. Which I thought that it's nice to hear that people are starting to realize those things, that some kids, it's the outcome's going to be better for them if it's paper and pencil as opposed to forcing them onto a computer. There are a lot of other things that they were talking about, House Bill 200, Senate Bill 85, vouchers, or they're calling it Ohio Opportunity Scholarship, where it's actually, if that were to go through, it would raise the needs-based up to, I think, 300% of poverty level for people to get vouchers, the voucher out of the public schools into private, mostly parochial schools. So I'm not sure what's behind that. I guess we could all speculate what might be behind that. And like all General Assemblies, there's some anti-bullying legislation going around, student expulsion procedures under Senate Bill 246 was interesting as well. But one thing I would like to say regarding the whole legislative conference, we had 2 board members from Akron Public Schools down there. And they split us up by tables by Senate districts. And so we were at Senator Vernon Sykes' district, and we were the only school system that was down there out of his Senate district. And then the other Senate district, I can't remember the number, but it included some of Canton, I think it included Canton City Schools, because there was a legislator who was a former Canton City School board member that came to eat lunch with us. And there was one person from Lake there, and she left before lunch. So for that Senate district, there was one person. And when they started out that conference they actually asked for a show of hands. And I would guesstimate there might have been 70, 80, 90 school board members there, but out of 3,000 plus school board members in the state, and you're going down and lobbying, that's a poor showing. And I think as the Ohio School Board Association, we need to, and it takes school board members. I'm not pointing at anybody at this table because we're not all going to go down. We can't all. And we had a very good showing. But it's telling, because if the legislators don't see numbers, and I go down there for other trade groups, and we have much bigger numbers because those numbers count in the eyes of the representatives and senators who come to those. So I think we really, as an association, need to do a better job of getting people down there in front of our legislators in person, because they see those numbers, and that makes, and they remember those numbers. So.
I think it was like that last year, too.
Yeah, it was a little better last year.
Hopefully this will lift us up a little bit. Again, I was at Case as well with Sister Mansfield and Sister Baylor, and I had the opportunity to go to Piper where they had a Dr. Seuss week. They had Crazy Hat Day, they had Green Eggs Day. Someone actually made green eggs. They shared with a variety of aspects of Dr. Seuss's life. Now, for most of us, Piper is one of our oldest buildings. They'll celebrate, I believe, next year 100 years. It has been a struggling building over the years where they barely had maybe 100, 150 or so students to well over 200 and some odd students now. It's a building that has stood its time. We don't know what we can do to assist that building or community, but I'm hoping that we will keep that in mind, Mr. CFO and Superintendent, when, if and ever funds become available, because that community has grown. We are seeing students coming from other areas of the district coming to fight for a building that you would not think that students would want to attend. But the teachers, staff are extremely dedicated and have done a great job in spite of a lot of negatives on their behalf. So we salute the work of that particular school building and their principal. I was at the Harold K. Stubbs dinner, and along with our students, one of our outstanding partners, Mr. Gene Scruggs, was recognized in meritized status and his contributions that he makes with so many areas of our school district. And then Mr. Carney, who was a 1960 silver medalist in the Olympics. What a wonderful example for students to see. One of our own in our area that excelled in athletics that we're honoring today, that they could see what, if they stick to it, what possibilities are available for them. And then we had an opportunity to check in with all of our schools in our cluster to just ask the principals what was planned, what had the students planned for this coming Wednesday. And it was a variety of things. Students, balloons, or students just meeting in the auditorium, or library, or gathering outside for a few moments to share what was going on and to honor the things that have happened most recently. So a lot of our students were not quite aware of what was going on or what they needed to do, but all of the principals had something in place in case the students decided they wanted to do something in that day, something that would be safe, something that would honor those deceased students, but also something that, of course, would make us aware that we have work to do to not only protect our teachers, but protect our students as well. And again, we on this board, and I know I'm not speaking for myself, we do not support having teachers carrying guns. We want to sort of make that clear. You're going to hear a whole lot of things, but the Akron Public School does not, for many reasons, and particularly safety for them, as well as our students. So those are some of the things that our students were concerned about at Case, where we stood on that particular issue as well. So we encourage them to continue to demonstrate, but in a very peaceful. Civil disobedience is great. This country is based on that, but we also want to make sure we protect them from those who might want to take advantage of that kind of situation.
Oh, I wanted to mention too, at Church Sunday, Bishop Joy Johnson spoke to that across the pulpit. He spoke about the students and what they, were looking to do as far as protest, civil disobedience. And he explained it, to the students that were there. He had our Akron Public School students stand up and had the congregation pray over their safety and everything. And then he explained, he said, now when you get out there and you're protesting, remember it's civil disobedience. So you could get arrested, if you're doing it the way that you should be doing. And, so you have to bear the consequences of protest, should it come to something like that. But he was very thorough, and he supports Akron Public Schools in such a great way. And, I so appreciate him as one of our leaders in the community and how he cares about, he cares about the entire community. So if he knows something and it's impacting any of our children or any of our parents or our community at large, he will speak to it. So I just appreciate and wanted to just bring that up since that's forthcoming here.
Right, and then we also emphasize through Bishop Joy Johnson and all of those part of EMS and other religious communities, Sunday they were asked to pray for all of our students and to have some act of, just as you explained, we did it in my church, but many of them in the Akron area were doing the same thing. Take a moment out to make sure our students understood what was forthcoming and that they had the support of their pastors and the congregation.
Yes.
I'll just add in a little bit of detail. I think most of the events I went to have been covered, but one quick thing from the Ohio State Board Association Legislative Conference. Representative Patterson mentioned the school funding work group, and I think his actual quote, well, I'm going to try, but it was the best minds in the state are going to try to find a formula that will work, and one of those best minds includes our own treasurer. So I just want to say thank you so much for serving on that, and it was very clear that the representatives seemed excited by the minds that they had working on that complex problem. And I would also say that OSBA did take a stand against House Bill 512. That's the one that Mr. Miller was mentioning that kind of combines everything together. And they are encouraging local school districts to take and local school boards to take a look at the bill as well to make a judgment call and to or disagree and look seriously at what 512 could mean for our district. The State of the City was fantastic. I thought it was really interesting that there were 2 questions from the audience about education. I looked around at our table, and I don't think they came from us. They came from others, which was great. And also just a thank you to everyone who was involved in the reception for Mr. James. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. The video from the Portage Path CLC kids was a highlight of my month. It was awesome. And the For Women Forever event that Mr. Miller also talked about, the chair of the Women's Endowment Fund who introduced the CFO, Sherry Newbert, who is also the VP and CIO of Goodyear, is an APS grad. It's really cool to see folks in the community that stay in the community and that lead these international multi-million-dollar companies. Very cool. And thanks to everyone for the North Main tour and the new case tour. Exciting buildings and looking forward to the future. So thanks.
Thank you. I think everything that, anything that I've done, I think has been covered at this point. I do want to throw out there, I'm going to take some presidential prerogative and move something up on the agenda here in a second, but also just to mention I spoke with Ms. Baylor, and she is going to work, we're going to work together to try and get the mobile meetings scheduled for the remainder of the year. So we last year tried to take 6 of our board meetings from here, take them out into the community, and visit each of the clusters, and before each board meeting there's a small school fair or cluster fair for the different schools within that cluster to showcase some of their students and some of their projects and things that they're doing within the cluster, different PTAs and so forth. So Ginger and I are going to work on doing that. I've also had some conversations with Council President Margot Somerville. We're going to try and get a meeting on the calendar and toss some dates back and forth for a joint meeting or 2 with the school board, like we have done in previous years, where we bring city council and school board together for one joint meeting. So we are going to work on that. The thing I would like to move up, since we've all kind of mentioned it, is Mr. James' decision, the decision, that though I think we said it was much better executed than the decision we had. And that is Mr. James's choice to stay with us and continue the work that we've been doing here at Akron Public Schools to really raise the bar, raise the level of achievement of our students, raise the level of engagement of our community, and transforming the way that we teach and learn here at Akron Public Schools. We've had several years together, and you've brought a lot to this board and to this district and to this community as a whole. And we couldn't be happier that you chose to stay. And I want to thank, as well as some of our board members have, Mary Kelly Outley and Dr. McWilliams Woods and other staff members who helped put together and literally roll out the red carpet. That was rolled up very quickly. Roll out the red carpet for Mr. James on Friday, March 5th. We had a special reception for him in the morning. The mayor was there, and we were joined by Akron City Council members and staff and school board members, and it really was a great showing, I think, and hopefully you took away from that how much we appreciate your decision. So with that, I would like to read a resolution and then ask for approval from the board. This is what we presented Mr. James with on March 5th. Whereas David W. James was named Superintendent of Akron Public Schools in August 2008, and whereas Mr. James has provided leadership for the massive 15-year, $800 million building project converting all of Akron schools into community learning centers, which is nearly completed in partnership with the City of Akron. And whereas David James is a tireless and determined advocate for children and families and has made it his mission to connect the community to the classroom. And whereas to that end, David has created a variety of vital partnerships to transform education for our students. Partners such as the University of Akron to establish the Innovation Generation Scholarship, Stark State University to implement the College Credit Plus program, United Way of Summit County and Summit Education Initiative to focus on third grade students reading at or above grade level, and high school students graduating in 4 years, college and career ready. Akron Children's Hospital, in support of the Akron Children's Hospital Academy of Health and Human Services at North High School, at Kent State University, in support of the Kent State University College and Career Academy at Firestone CLC, providing programs in visual and performing arts, interior design, fashion, film, visual design, and architecture, and the LeBron James Family Foundation to develop the Wheels for Education program, Akron After School program, and most recently the I Promise School. And whereas David James is a leader in education in the state of Ohio with positions on several influential boards and as president of the Buckeye Association of School Administrators, helping direct and guide the future of public education in our state. And whereas David loves when we go on and on about all of this. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Akron City School District that David James is recognized by board members and his colleagues for his outstanding service for the children of Akron. That March 5th, 2018 be declared David W. James Day in the Akron Public Schools. So everybody, I hope we all get off. Yeah. And that a copy of this resolution be made a part of the permanent record of the Akron Board of Education. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. James, and thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Before we move on, would anyone like to say?
I just want to say, just looking back from March 5th, before that time, as I had really had time to think about his possible departure, I was like, there's no way. There is just no way we could do this. We could do it, but it just would be such a task. Because you spearheaded this initiative, and to have the person who started it, there's no substitutions that could have taken it, through probably at a better pace than you. We could have done it. I'm not going to say it was impossible or anything like that, but it'll be much better, and I think the process will be a lot less bumpy with you still at the helm. So I just appreciate your decision so much, because you have brought so much to this district, to APS, to its leadership, to everyone who has a stake in this APS district. You've touched so many lives, and you've done so many things that people, they'll never know. There's so many things that the superintendent has initiated that many of you will never know. And he would not be the one to tell you, because he doesn't even like what we just did. He doesn't like recognition or any of that publicly. So, I just appreciate your decision, and that just goes to show you that you really love Akron Public Schools and you love this community, and your decision shows that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to make him feel uncomfortable?
I did want to say, everybody likes advancement. Everyone wants to have an opportunity to receive a challenge, and Columbus surely would have been a challenge. But at the same time, persons have to know that sometimes their best place is where they are. And your best place is where you are. And those same opportunities that were available in Columbus are waiting for you right here. And for you to bring us and push us even harder and higher. So we applaud your wanting to move forward and to have that challenge. But we have many challenges here that we want you to continue to challenge us with so that we can be successful and even more so successful in this district.
I'm gonna be super short this week, I promise. We have 7 board members now. We have a superintendent that's gonna stay. Let's do some work. Let's do some good work.
You know, and I'm just going to say, yeah, we want to continue to move forward. We need to move forward, and we're going to challenge you as well as we want you to challenge us, as Reverend Walker said, so we can make the best out of what we can here at Akron Public Schools for our students, for the district, and for the city of Akron.
Good?
Thank you.
So as I see all these young people out in the audience, you know, for my staff and for us, it's really about them. So it's all about you, and we care about your success. So that's really what kept me here, is looking at your faces, because for those of you who are seniors in June, I want to see, or late May, early June, I want to see you cross that stage and move on to bigger and better things. So, amen. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Well deserved. All right. Communications and recognitions. We have with us Mr. Vasilati for the Winter Sports Scholar Athletes recognition. The floor is yours, Mr. Vasilati.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to celebrate some of our student athletes, what they've accomplished this recently concluded winter sports season. Speaking of, to quickly recap the champions, we had in bowling, the North Vikings on the girls' side on the bowling championship. For boys bowling was Ellett. Girls basketball, we had Buchtel as our champions. And boys basketball, we had regular season Buchtel win the title, and then the city playoff game, Ellett won the championship. And Ellett also captured the wrestling championship as well in the city.
Wow.
And I really need to recognize Firestone Swimming and Diving. Obviously, they don't compete for a city championship, being the only program, but another awesome season at Firestone Swimming and Diving. I got to see them a couple of times, and it's amazing to watch them do their thing. And advanced 10 student athletes to the state meets. So that's an incredibly awesome accomplishment for them. So tonight we're going to recognize the student athletes who are here as all academic city performers. And to do that, they needed to carry at least a 3.4 grade point average during the winter sports season, which is always very impressive to me given how busy they are. Citywide, we had 116 student athletes in the winter earn that distinction. So that was very impressive as well. So we have some representatives from each school. Student athletes, come on up. You're going to get to introduce yourself, your sport, and the grade you're currently in. Okay, we'll go from my left to right. Again, your name, current grade, and the sport in which you participated this winter.
I'm Molly Pelovitz. I go to Firestone. I'm a senior, and I'm part of the Firestone Swimming and Diving team, and I'm a swimmer.
My name is Ayana Locke, and I am a part of Gilmore Basketball. I'm a freshman.
My name is Caitlin Hill, and I go to East. I am a senior, and I was a part of bowling.
My name is Matthew Waskey. I go to East. I'm in the 11th grade, and I was a bowler as well.
My name is Imani Jackson. I'm a junior at Buchtel High School, and I play basketball.
I'm Josiah Bushster. I'm a sophomore from Kimmer Garfield, and I bowl.
My name is Dante Keys. I'm a senior. I'm from Kimmer Garfield, and I bowl.
My name is Malia Ramsey. I play for Firestone High School and I am from girls basketball.
My name is Devontae Paul. I'm a sophomore at North High School and I run track and field.
My name is Heaven Perry. I'm a junior at North High School and I run track and field.
My name is Cassie Dario. I play girls basketball at high school and I'm a senior.
My name is Steven Zampelli. I go to Elwood High School. I'm in grade 12 and I play basketball.
My name is Dylan West. I'm a freshman at Worcester High School and I wrestle.
My name is Lainey Norris. I'm a senior at Elwood High School and I play basketball.
My name is Bree Pavlik. I'm a junior at Firestone High School and I'm in bowling.
Very well done. You can see why you're scholar athletes. Great job. I need to embarrass Molly a little bit too because she was also named Academic All-American. Thank you very much, everybody. We had some seniors in the room, I know, so good luck moving forward. Your endeavors in college or whatever it is you're doing in the service or employment. And some of you continue as student athletes. I'll take that great work ethic in the college or university setting with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vasilati, and congratulations to all of you. And for anyone that's listening or watching, we do this to always take a minute to recognize that our students are students first, scholars first, athletes second, but we want to congratulate them on both.
He made his first 5 3-pointers in the championship games, that kid.
Really?
He couldn't miss.
Wow, that would be fascinating.
I thought he said senior.
5 in a row?
He was played for Elwood. He won the championship game.
5 in a
All right, and next up, school safety and relationships presentation, Mr. Dan Rambler.
Hi. Just in time.
Sorry, there were a lot of athletes to get through.
No.
Dan, when you're done doing that,
There it is.
I'm going to go over school safety and relationships. I'm going to have a few people that are going to join in. I'm going to speak about at the end especially. First of all, I put a bunch of links on here because I wanted to make this, when I do presentations, I like them to be something you can use later on too. There is and this does not relate to the school safety pieces, but it relates to the relationships. The Oprah's Exploring Trauma, this is a really good presentation video that I found. Carla had shared it with me. And trauma impacts so many of the kids, people we experience. It impacts all of us. It's a really good overview if you have a chance to click on it. And I made this shareable with everybody so you can see that. So clearly, just to relate this back to our 5-year district focus under the safe learning areas, clearly it directly aligns to focus area number 2 with safe schools and making sure that our schools are safe for our students and feeling safe to them as well. So I want to give you a few pieces of research, and again, those 2 items that are blue and underlined are also links that you can go to. This NPR report on how to prevent the next school shooting, it's a really good roadmap, and I know it was shared with you guys by Mark Williamson as well, but it really goes over what are preventions and interventions, and it's what I'm going to talk about especially at the end of the presentation as well. And I really like this quote that was in there about not waiting for it to happen, but what do you do to improve your schools to keep it from happening, which I think is really important. And then I also linked the 2004 Safe Schools Report, which was for the Secret Service and Department of Education, because again, that shows a lot of the best practices to prevent being a targeted violent. It has a heavy reliance on the threat assessment process, which we in the district do really, really well, our threat assessment process. Yes, sir.
That hasn't been updated since 2004?
I was actually trying to point out that it's given us some of the best evidence back from then, which we've actually carried on. They've updated again, but not through the same two entities that did that one. I thought that was really important, Secret Service and the Department of Education. I thought that was an interesting combination, so I wanted to point that.
Thank you. Sorry.
I have Rob Boxler here and Andy Atkins as well from Environmental Services, and I'm sure I'm messing up your department as well, Rob.
Facility Services.
Facility Services. So we actually combine on a lot of the different safety areas because it's not only safety as it relates to like the creation of the building, the different physical pieces of safety, but also then the human aspects of safety. So through this, I also linked the prepare detail information, which Brian Hill, who's our school psychologist that does the crisis intervention, crisis training, and then the crisis team as well, that you guys have kind of seen over the years as we've had different larger crisis incidents the past few years. They also are utilized to go out to the buildings to help not just with the physical parts of a crisis that might occur, but then the follow-up for the social and emotional aspect as well. Also just recently, the superintendent signed a memorandum of understanding with Summit County ESC and the group of schools that are part of that we would actually share our crisis support teams if something would happen with any of our neighboring districts or us. We could actually share those resources. It's nothing that's going to replace anything that we have. It's just if somebody needed help that we could help each other, much like in the past years that we've helped like the charter schools in the area when they've had some different significant crisis incidents. I wanted to list a bunch of our tools that we do have. One of the things always when we talk about safety is we're always cautious not to give out the precise details of everything, because obviously we don't want to inform anyone that may have some intent to do something or harm someone. But here's a bunch of the different tools. Go Guardian is a wonderful tool that we have that enables us to, if kids are searching things on our network that we're concerned about, it actually sends information to me that I'm able to distribute to the principals so we can intervene. A lot of times it's concerns with suicide potentials, and that's been a wonderful tool that we've just started this year. The Safer School Ohio tip line, which is something we've been part of since they introduced that, which I believe was 3 years ago, and we actually just reconfirmed that we're still part of it. So if there's somebody calls in a tip to the Ohio Department of Education Safer School tip line, it actually comes to me as well. Akron Police Department has wonderful tips that we get through them. In our relationship with them, they have a number of people that do different cyber work and different internet work, so we actually get a lot of things from them. And part of that is their social media monitoring too, so that way we can be informed. Crime Stoppers, we started working with them 4 years ago. We actually also promote that within our middle schools and high schools so kids know about Crime Stoppers. And there's been a lot of our kids that have received rewards from them as well for reporting tips. Summit County Sheriff Deputy, we get tips from them that they have received as well. Parents and community, it's one of the things I say consistently is our parents and community are really good, and Ricky, who's here from Bookdale, actually could talk about that Bookdale incident we know, which is something that the community was the ones to give us information, and that was incredibly important. And it's that situation, clearly we're not going to talk about specifics, but that situation highlights not only the community's support in making sure that kids are safe, but it also highlights how these people build relationships with the kids. Student tips, again, that would hit on the fact that our kids trust the people in the schools, they trust the adults, they're giving them information. And then staff will get those tips also from students, and not just, some sort of police or safety team kind of staff member, but also teachers, administrators, custodians, any of the people in the building that have relationships with kids. ADM board recently, we had talked to a teacher at Litchfield actually earlier this year that shared this crisis text line that they have with ADM, so we've linked up with them as well. So it's another resource that we can utilize as well. Some physical prevention. So we have our walk-through metal detectors. Every middle school, every high school has those. We use those randomly, and board policy on metal detectors is random use of metal detectors. So we use the metal detectors, the walk-through ones randomly. My safety team and I were just talking in the hallway, and we use the handheld ones as well quite a bit. The handheld ones I tend to like a lot more even than the walk-through ones, because there is so much mobility to them, and you can do those in less obvious places in a building, so you can go classroom to classroom and use the wands in there. We also use the APD drug dogs. Every high school, every middle school will see them twice a year, and we do those again randomly. We've tried to make that incredibly random so people don't know when. It's not like you're building number 6, so you're going to see it the second week after Christmas on a Thursday, and we don't do them on the same days of the week anymore. We tried to randomize that as much as possible. The ALICE training, which Rob would have had a lot to do with when we started all that, and that's continuing on through the school resource officers that are assigned to every middle school and high school. Sergeant Sandor, who's over the SROs with APD, kind of leads that, and then the officers do the training by cluster. So Officer Bond that's at Bookdale, he would go down to the elementary buildings in Bookdale and do the training with the elementary buildings as well. Our safety protocols, which oftentimes we would refer to as our flip chart, which Rob and Andy, I know, take a lot of time to make sure that that's really fluid and accurate and something that staff can use, and the staff get training on that each year so that they know what to do in different situations that might occur. APS safety training with APD as well. We have done training in the past with APD at North a number of years ago, and then this past couple years ago we did with all the administrators as well. So we had some district-wide preparedness for if something were to occur. Window hammers, Rob had gotten those a few years ago, and we got those out to teachers' classrooms if there was some need to break a window. And I found out that those are really, really good at breaking windows, because I had a piece of glass at my house and I had one of the hammers, and you just like barely touch it and it just breaks it. So it's really good. And it has other tools on it that you can use too it's actually, if you had one in your car and your car went underwater, you could not only break your window, but it has a piece to cut your seatbelt too. So just as a, not in-school thing, but as a personal thing. The human part, which is really, really where I want to focus on, is we have really good community members, parents, kids, staff members, and it's all layers of staff. I was trying to come up with various staff members because, we say staff and we tend to think only administrators or only teachers or something, but there are so many, and it's not just the people that are actually paid by the district, it's volunteers. I had a woman today call me and tell me that there was a gun on a street, and so we contacted one of the officers and had him go check, and it was like right on the middle of a street. It wasn't a real gun, it was a BB gun, but it's good that they reported that, and they didn't even report it to APD, they reported it to us because they were worried that kids might walk down that way. We get so much information like that, which is wonderful. And it's something that I know the safety team members, the officers, our mobile officers that we have would all say as well, what's their number one job? What's your guys' number one job?
Build relationships.
Build relationships. It's something we talk about constantly. And Bobby was right, because safety is, but we make things safe by building relationships, which is a lot of what that NPR report had as well. They do a phenomenal job about it, and they are really, really good at it. And it's part of not just them with the kids or them with the staff or them with families, but also it's them with us too. And I had a couple of them in my office today, and they were talking about some other things they would like to see us do. And it's good that they have the ability to be honest and tell us too, because they're there. They're in the field. They know what's going on. They know the kids. They know them incredibly well. So I can't overemphasize that building relationships and knowing the kids and knowing the people you interact and serve with is huge. So I have some of my safety team members here. I put their names. I actually had told them, so they were all nervous about coming, and they were like, why are you having me here? And I told Ricky as I was going to the bathroom before Mr. Vassilotti was speaking, I said, hey, if I'm late, just go ahead and do the presentation. You'll be great. I didn't want to tell them the specifics of why, because I don't want to set up their answers. I actually just wanted them to be honest. And so I wanted to see if a couple of them wanted to give you examples of how they do the job each day. How do you build relationships? What's an example of some way that you build a relationship and it enabled you to have a positive intervention as opposed to a negative, something happened and then you had to do it? Yes, Bobby. Bobby's at Ellett, by the way, safety team member.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby. I work at Ellett, and this is my partner, Kirk. And we've been here pretty much, the same. We may not be by a day or two. But actually, we had a meeting before, and I told all our guys, like, we constantly have to be the adult first and foremost. And we can't, we have to give them an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we get a kid that's in a hostile situation, we can't be hostile with them. So, we the ones that, just recently a young man was upset because I was stopping his groove because he was in the hall. But he didn't know his own teacher asked me to go get him. So, he was pitching a fit. So it's kind of like, you just gotta, you don't feed into it and it's not personal. So, you just try to help them identify themselves, let them know you're there for them, and you build up a relationship. And the other kids around help them build up a rapport with you, because when one don't like you and their whole friend group like you, it's kind of like they don't want to be out. So, over time, we build up relationships, we piggyback off each other. There's people that want to talk to me and they want to talk to Kurt. So, they confide in us. They'll tell us anything. They'll come right up and say, it's going to be a fight at 3 o'clock. And just to be out of it, it's like they feel really strong about doing that because they feel like they prevented something to help. And you really let them know that they are helping. And that's a good thing to do. And we won't put you out there. We won't have nobody, to put you out there to even question you about it. We really appreciate it. So, it's really a nice job to see people go from 9th to 12th, see them grow, and they come up on their own. They learn from a lot of teachers, ourselves in the building. And it's actually really nice to see that unfold. So it's just relationships are key. They'll tell you everything. Like, they don't want to be hurt. And they trust in you. So, I'll just keep that trust going. I'll try to just not take it personal, not, I never go back at them, So, just let them grow.
If I can have Officer Williams, who's been at Miller South now, he's been at East, both the middle school and the high school.
East High School for 5 years and then over to Miller South.
Okay.
I had some real good experiences at East. When I got there was a lot of kids in the school that just hated me because I wore this uniform. And one kid in particular sticks out in my head that, like, all his friends would say hi to me, but he would never say hi to me as a freshman. And every day, every class, he'd walk by me and I'd be like, his nickname was Bubba, I'll just say that. I'd be like, hey Bubba, how's it going? And he'd walk by and I'd say a word. I'm like, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. For 2 years. His junior year, he started talking to me. When he graduated, I was invited to his graduation party. And to this day, when I see him, he'll show up at some of the football games for East. He still comes over and talks to me. He asks me how my kids are doing. My son was 3 or 4 when I started there, so I would bring him to the extracurricular activities and he would get to know the kids. And to this day, they're adults now that they'll ask about it. On a different note, it behooved me at one point there to have a personal relationship with one kid in particular. Before lunch one day, I was standing in front of the cafeteria and a teacher walked up to me and brought a young man up who I had a relationship with and said, can you check his pockets for me? So I knew the kid fairly well and I said, Anthony, That's okay. We don't know his last name.
We're not saying that's earliest name.
And I said, man, what's going on? I said, if you got some, just give it to me. We'll work it out. So he pulled out a small bag of marijuana and he was shaking like a leaf. And I knew from knowing him that a little bag of marijuana is not going to make him shake like a leaf. So I put my arm around him and I said, let's just go to my office. So we walked in there and long story short, he ended up having a pistol on him. It was loaded, and I think had I not had that relationship with him where he personally knew me, he knew my kids, he had every opportunity in the world to take out that gun and do something to me and get away. So the relationships I think are key, and even now at Miller South, it's a very different atmosphere, obviously. But even just today, I had one little fifth grader come up to me, she goes, such and such got in a fight today in the cafeteria, or in the morning announcements, just so you know, you're welcome. So it's obviously a very different atmosphere. I think I look at Miller South as a way of establishing a relationship with these kids, so when they do ship off to another school and they need another officer, they're going to look and say, hey, you know, he's just like Officer Williams, he's real friendly and really easy to get along with. So it's a little different, but still fun.
Ricky, who's at Bookville, or Gary, who's at STEM Middle, or Daryl, who actually is one of our drivers now, would one of you like to add something as well?
I'll go next. Cafeteria. I had a fight between two young men that really didn't want to fight. I mean, you could tell they didn't want anything to do with a fight, but because of all the peer pressure and everybody basically cheering them into the fight, they started. But I was able to break up the fight with only my voice. Hey, stop. Had a good relationship with both of them because athletically, I always checked on them to see what they did, if they scored any points, if they made the team, what have you. Well, after I got the fight stopped, the one kid kept snapping his head at his bag. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's something in this bag. I said, come on, man. I said, I got your jacket and I got your bag. Walked the kids down to the security office. I put one in the conference room, one in the security office, and I sat the bag down and I told Officer Vaughn, which was involved in the last incident, we're calling Top Cop because he got all this hoopla and whatever. Well, anyway, I told Top, I said, Top, check that bag, man. He walks over, shakes the bag, and he said, yeah, Rick, there's something in it. Reaches in and there's this pellet pistol that looked like a Glock. They look just alike. I said, that kid, that could get that kid hurt. But it was because of the other students and the way that kid kept snapping his head. You know, somebody walked up, and I don't remember, but they grabbed me and said, hey, check his bag. There's something that he should not have that's in that bag. And building relationships is what got that information to us. And the ones that helped me the most, Dan will tell you, because I'm always in the MD classes. Those are my students. Those are my kids. But Mr. Brown, they're playing cards again. And that kid would come out in a wheelchair and come up and tell me that they're in there playing cards again. So I get information from all of them, not just some of them. All of them contribute.
So I asked them here because I wanted you guys to hear the real stories, and it's good. I can tell you the second layer from my perspective, but I think it's really good, and it's the stuff that I know the superintendent, all of us as leaders, we make sure that we listen and interact with all of our people so we can really understand, and then support our kids, our schools, our families, and make sure that they're safe. And we're really fortunate we have amazing officers, amazing safety team members, amazing mobile officers that work with us and really do a lot to try to build relationships with kids. It's the same thing we've talked about for 6 years. They're tired of me saying those 2 words, but it's the thing that we all know is going to serve us the greatest positive outcomes. Okay, that's all I have. Yes, ma'am?
Just want to say something anecdotally just for a second. Reverend Walker mentioned how this board has no intention of arming teachers, and one of the things that came out of the Oval Office was that security guards and SROs don't care about kids. They don't love kids like their teachers love kids. And having my brother-in-law, in full disclosure, was an SRO for several years. I know Officer Williams. I know several of the officers that work in our schools. I had an interesting time up at Firestone High School where I was out looking around the grounds for something and got stopped by one of our officers because I was out and I wasn't supposed to be there. He couldn't tell who I was. I was thrilled that he stopped me. Our security people and our officers care about our kids. And when we were at Case the other day, one of the things that I reassured those kids of was those Akron police officers and those people that work in here that are security officers, they care about you. And they are moms and dads, and they are going to do everything in their power to protect you no matter what. And then, I watched that go across their face. That was something that meant something to them. They could see those officers and they could think about them and know that they were cared about. So the fact that that was said from the highest office in the land really kind of made me furious, because I know how hard these folks work for us, and I believe in the impact that they make every single day. So thank you for bringing them, and thanks for giving me a chance to say that.
It's one of the happy byproducts I always talk about with the officers too, is they change the way that kids look at our officers. Because the kids experience them every day. And normally the only time you experience an officer, something bad has happened. So to experience an officer every single day, you build a relationship. You look at officers differently. And it really overcomes some of the stigma that gets built up too.
Coach Good.
I'd just like to make a point. I work at the STEM middle school with 5th to 8th grade, and I just want us all to be aware this is trickling down, because I have probably had a dozen kids in the last week or two come up and say, Mr. Cooley, what are you going to do if a guy comes in here to shoot? And I always turn around and say, well, what are you going to do? I say, I know what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? I said, follow the teacher's directions, get out of the way, get out if you can. But it's on 5th and 6th graders' minds, so I just want to make them be aware. It's trickling down, it's real to them. So we need to keep working on that.
I just would like to point out, I thought for a minute he was going to talk about the special relationship he's building with Aiden over there. Thanks for keeping that between us.
A couple things. One, I noticed part of the literature always emphasizes bullying, and bullying as a possible cause. And I don't want to sort of water that down. We talk about bullying, we go through bullying training, but that's not the only cause to what's been happening. Mental illness, just plain people being mean, evil. It has nothing to do with them ever being bullied. And I think we're using that term quite a bit now, that this happened because so-and-so was bullied, and we don't have any kind of information, no data, no anything to substantiate that that was the case. So I don't know if there's any other thing that we're doing as it relates to mental health. How do we pair up all of these persons, from the bus driver to the building to our wonderful safety team and police officer, where mental health is about? How do we deal with that situation?
So the nice thing with mental health is we have a number of agencies in the district, community agencies that work with us, like Pastoral, Minority for Behavior Health, Child Guidance, Greenleaf, that we make sure that when there is a concern of that, we connect those kids to those agencies. We would also connect them to our own internal school psychologist, the counselor. But additionally, that would also, and it is not directly aligned to that, but I would align it to that to some degree, is our threat assessment process, which is really important to make sure that, as a district, and we always give the statistics to the superintendent every year, that we don't ever take a threat as it isn't true or it couldn't happen. We assume it is. It's why when there is some sort of threat, we tend to go beyond, because I've always said that I always assume it's true until I know that it's not. And we'll overemphasize it until we're sure. But I do think that the mental health, as we continue to look at it, it's always a careful thing, because, a lot of times there is some incident that occurs and everybody says, oh, I knew that kid, or I knew that person was, but we also have to be careful that we're not just labeling people too. So it's making sure that you're looking at it from the right vantage point. And that's why I think all those agencies that we have who can help those people that are dealing with that can help. But then you mentioned the good thing too with bullying and bad behavior, because a lot of times we have a very precise definition of bullying, but our community doesn't know bullying like that. A lot of times they'll say it's bullying, and then we'll say, no, it's not really bullying. And then it's like there's this friction between us. It's why we've gotten better, I think, at saying it may not be our definition of bullying, but it's not nice, so it's still wrong. So it's making sure that people aren't confused that just because we're saying it's not bullying doesn't mean it's okay. But we do throw the word bullying, not just, I don't mean we, I mean society in general. We throw that word around a lot.
All right, and I want to ask from Mr. Boxler, all the way, all of these gentlemen now, if you had all the money you could use, how would you secure a building to make it as safe as possible? In Kentucky, there's a building that's supposed to be Fort Knox of safety. They've got cameras hooked up to the police department. They've got these boom guns that send out all kinds of spray or cloud. If a bad person comes into the building, they have other things. So what, if you had the money, what would it be? What would it look like? What do you think it would look like?
I don't think that's possible. As long as you have someone inside the building that can open the door and let their buddy in.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
So what are you going to do?
that.
You can't stop that.
The only way possible, if you did the metal detection like when everybody came through the door, you'd have to have alarms on every other door. So all other doors, you can exit on whatever, but you'd have to have an alarm, so once they're open, it's known. Because someone will always let their friend in somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else.
It's physically, it goes back to the old saying, who are locks for? Honest people. Because if somebody wants to get in, they're going to get in. It's inevitable. I think the biggest thing you need to do, because one of my other goals is I teach Alice and I teach active shooter to police officers. So I teach police officers how to respond to these incidents. Almost every incident, when it comes to that, is somebody that has some type of tie to that school. Whether it be a student, a former student, I think it goes back to the relationships and knowing who you're dealing with within a school. And I've had that at East. I actually looked at my principal, who I miss very much, Mrs. Gould, and said, he scares me. And I've been a police officer for 25 years. This one particular kid scared me. And then we worked and we got through it, but you just have to know who you're dealing with. And you have to see the signs and you have to take action. But as far as securing a building and making it impenetrable, I don't think it's possible.
You got to get to the heart of the situation. It's with the kids. The thing about the kids, like anything you do repetitiously. So if you we're at Elliott, so our number of kids is pretty big, but we've been there for so long. So every kid has his, his particular, mentality. So you can almost tell it. So like you said about bullying, I mean, there's a kid that comes straight to me and say, Bobby, this guy, man, he want to fight me. Why? Because he said I was looking at his girlfriend. Now, if you willing to tell me that and tell me the kid, right, then I have to use a profound way of getting to the kid. Ask him, are you really willing to give it up for him? She with you. So what's the purpose? So you have to really give them something that nobody else is giving them. Talk to them, give it to them straight. And as far as, if you want to spend some money, you got to, like they putting cameras on new schools all around the outside as well as the inside, but you would have to have exclusively somebody out there as well as somebody in front of the cameras as a team. Because in order to get in, you got to walk up and get in. So in order to make the move, you got to actually do it. So if somebody's watching, if there's something from the street, you got local people around here putting it on their houses from the corner all the way up. So it's almost like from the corner all the way up, every school is sitting on the block. So regardless, you have to walk up to it. So if you're going to spend some money, you got to make your room, up to, where you can look at it more than one person. And if you get action here, you get action there.
So you say someone's constantly watching the monitor.
Constantly. That's the job. That's just the job.
Those two work together.
It's a job. So it's kind of like, so if you got a monitor that's going to to the corner here. Here we got a guy in black standing on the corner. How quick can we tell you that if we got everybody in this room in one building and this whole team is watching the camera? Okay, then we got people outside that's Johnny on it, you know what I mean? So, we hear it and we try to, like he said, it's true until you know it's false. So, you know, and then, fear. The fear in a kid is astronomical. The fear in a kid, like he said, 6th grade, if you got a kid, if you can think to yourself when it was a bad thunderstorm, you was right up under your mom or dad. They had to tell you, it's just some rain, just some thunder. You know what I mean? That's just because you had to be told that. You know, you ready to go, oh, thunder, you about to lose his over the life. So like my mom told me, the world was ending since I was a little kid. So, you know, you have to actually live through it to actually be comfortable with it. So our age, we're comfortable with it. So for somebody in high school, they hear one thing, Mom, come get me. You know what I mean? And it's one thing that's kind of like, oh, it's just a stink bomb. You know, somebody got it from the Hulk store. But you can't convince a kid it was just that if you smell the smell. So, you know, it's, if you're going to spend it, just invest in something that's going to really help you. They give you a lack of time, like a sense of time. So if you got it from the corner, you know, and during these hours of the day, it's kind of like everybody knows. You know what I mean? This is not the time to come through here. Even kids that's graduated, I won't go through it. They won't go through the school probably why school going on. They learn from other people. So, you know.
Bobby's a talker. He'll make the kid forget about his problem.
And if you graduate, thanks, Bobby.
Now, I tell you, too, what's rewarding for me is I test my kids. If I'm outside in the parking lot, which I'll frequently walk around the building just to make sure there's nobody sitting in cars or whatever, and I will not go back in the same door that I came in. But I'll walk towards the door, and I'll go, you know, let me in. And then you'll see the kid walk towards the door, and another upperclassman that I've been with for years will grab him and say, leave him out there. That's rewarding. Because the older kids know what I'm going to say when I come in if you open that door. Because you have no business opening that door for nobody. That's rewarding for me.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Officer Good wanted to say something.
This is the thing that I see since being here so long. I think you need to show them love. Nothing about money. I mean, I've given plenty of my time. I've seen all of you giving your time to these kids. You didn't ask for money. All they need is love. You got to keep giving them love. You got to show them that you're there for them through everything, through absolutely everything. And you got to let them know that you understand. It doesn't take money for any of that. It does not take money. I've given money out all day long. I can tell you, my boss can tell you, that isn't what it is. You got to show them that you love them, that you care about them. The money isn't the issue. Money's always an issue, you know, with everything, but it's not an issue with these kids. Not for me. You know, I come in, I'm giving a lot of time. I'll keep giving a lot of time till the day I die. I love these kids. I love who I work with. I love who I see every day. I mean, I see beautiful. I mean, these guys, I've worked with them. I've trained them in ways that I do things and how to work with kids and stuff. And they can tell you how I work. But that's what it takes. And every last one of those guys have it. And everybody over there has it, because I see it all the time. I see it from Deborah. I see it from everybody. You've all given your time. And that's what they want to see. It's not the money. They want to see that you love and you care for them. And I think we do that. More than any school system. I really do. So, I mean, I guess that's the best way I can answer that for you.
One more thing I'd like to add, most of our students, me and Bobby, they know we want to keep them out of trouble. We don't want to get them in trouble. And we do our best to keep them out of trouble. We tell them, you screw up too bad, we can't help you though. But, you know, like if they get in a small amount of trouble, we try to get there as quick as we can. A lot of times it's their mouths, then they get them in the bigger trouble. The first little incident's usually not that much. But they know we do our best to try to keep them out of trouble. So that builds the trust and the comfort. They know we care about them.
I mean, you absolutely love it.
Did you have a question? Sorry, yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, this is my first time ever to a meeting, so I don't know what the protocol is. Are we allowed to ask questions or? How's this work?
Not really, but if it's a quick one or a short one, yeah.
Okay, I have 3 kids in the system, and a 4th that's gonna be soon. I've got one at Miller, I've got one at Firestone, and one at Case. So all of this hits very home for me. We're actually having a town hall on this on Wednesday night. So if you want to attend, feel free, okay? But the question is, can't we, Reverend, speaking to your point, okay, when we have a child initially, when we're new parents, we spend $1,000 and we go and we literally baby-proof our house in every way possible. As a concerned parent, my question is, have we done everything that we can to baby-proof those schools in every way possible? You brought up that school, it's actually in Indiana, it's got hot zones, okay? They use fog machines and smoke machines in the ceiling. It disorients the shooter to a point where they're being seen on infrared cameras and they don't know where they're going, right? The doors are bulletproof. The school goes into lockdown mode and the sheriffs are there before the guy even can get down the hallway. So have we done everything as a school system possible? And more importantly, have we examined all of our safety protocols and procedures? I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you a story about my experience this morning at school, and I probably shouldn't because I don't want to get that school in trouble, but I literally walked right into the building in a big baggy Ohio State coat, all the way through the building to drop a note off for my kid, and nobody even asked me my name. They just assumed that I was a parent, because I look like, I look parentish, right? And I walked by 4 or 5 teachers, nobody questioned me. I was shocked. We're 3 weeks removed from this. I was totally shocked. And again, I don't want to get that school in trouble. And it wasn't Miller South, okay, because he's awesome. This guy guides us in every morning, okay? But I don't know what else to say. I probably already used too much of my time. I apologize. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of male pronouns, and I see all male. Do we have female safety team members?
Yes.
Do our female students relate to male safety team, or are we all everybody's in trouble always a male and not a female? Or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Now, we actually have worked over the years to make sure that every school has at least one male, at least one female. Most of the teams, like at middle schools, are 3 people, so there's always at least one, and that's for that reason. And also, if there's ever some concern of a student in a bathroom, clearly we're not sending men into women's bathrooms to go check on them. So we have a really strong division of that now, that we have both female and men in all the buildings.
Any other questions for Mr. Randall?
Could you talk through, I think it's a bit to our parents' question too, about what makes the kids feel the safest? And are there things that we are looking into and evaluating? What does our next step look like?
Sure. I think that we always need to keep reevaluating what we're doing. Always look at different options. I think as the years have progressed, that's the same thing we've done. Before there was when there was an active shooting, there was a different response. We've changed that. Like 6-7 years ago is when we went to Alice, so we changed that. We now have a lot of tips that we get that we used to not be part of getting those. We have more mobile folks now that we are able to send out to when there are issues that we haven't had. But it's the same thing. It's why when a couple of them were talking to me about an idea that I wrote it down, because it's a good idea. It's something we need to consider, and it's something that we need to make sure we're not just talking to ourselves as leaders, but also to the people in the building. But I think the other part is kids too. I think that's one of the nice things about, hopefully, that comes out of Wednesday, is having them tell us some of the things too, because they're there. They're going to know what they think too. And I think that's important to hear that. I don't know what makes kids feel the safest. I know what makes my 4 kids feel the safest is they have relationships with these different people, and they say hi to him constantly. It's like Officer Williams is all over the place at Miller South somehow, even though he's not. He's at the front most of the time. So it's part of that, that at least with my kids, that's one of the things they always talk about. Officer Dees is at STEM, in that STEM middle school, and it's the same. He's been out for a while, but I know that's the other part, is just that consistency of him, and he's interactive, he's around the place. And the same thing with Mr. Cooley there as well. But I think it's always important for us to continue to reevaluate. It's also good that we have Rob and Andy that are looking at the physical parts of it. I know Deborah just sent us a different piece to look at. We always keep needing to keep looking, to keep seeing what else there is. I would always caution us of being careful of, there's a fine balance that schools have to have, which is safe but inviting. And that's a really tricky balance, because we don't want to feel like a prison. You don't want to feel like that. And that's always a safe balance. I understand his concern totally. It's just we have to balance those two things to be absolutely as safe as we can, but also as welcoming and warm and accepting too. That's always a challenge.
I was gonna keep my mouth shut, but I don't feel I'm gonna do my job if I don't say this. And I heard every one of you guys, and you guys are correct when you talk about relationships with kids is important. But now I'm gonna shift a little bit to safety. And it's just something we can think about as a comment. What are we looking at as far as safety for these gentlemen? Safety for the students, safety for the teachers, safety for anyone who may be in the building, looking at safety, because the gentleman back here saying, mentioned, have we done everything we can? And that's a question we need to ask ourselves, have we done everything that we can to make sure all of our kids are safe? And then the other piece is mental health. I think we still got to do something. These gentlemen probably need to go through mental health. Mr. Brown mentioned about dealing with the kids he deal with. That's good, but does everyone know how to deal with kids who may have some mental health problems, some issues that they may have? Do they have a characteristic of a mental health issue? There's training that they can kind of go through to kind of identify, not saying that they are, because we talked about some of them being classified as troubled students, some of these kids. The kid with mental health is going to be in that group, okay, because they have a mental health problem, and so they're acting a certain way. Therefore, they're going to be looked at in that way. So now we need to look at what is causing this kid to act. Is the kid just acting this way all the time? And have we done anything? Have we referred them to get some kind of counseling? So those are just questions I want to bring out to us that we to ask ourselves, and just like the gentleman said, have we done everything that we need to do to ensure that everybody, we're responsible for those students, but make sure that everybody is safe. And so there may be something we have to continue to think about and look at on our end. Are we doing everything we can to make it safe for everybody? Okay. Thank you.
One more thing. Looking at the mental health, me and my wife are foster parents, and we've been foster parents for about 7, 8 years. And foster parent comes with a lot of meetings over the mental health, you know, all the ADHD, the bipolar disorders. I mean, I just went to a meeting on the mentality of the brain, you know, how it functions, how you can develop from 0 to 3, and what can get stuck in your head in that short period of time. You know, it's a big world from 0 to 3, from 3 on. So you're absolutely right when it comes down to a mental situation. There's a lot of signs, there's a lot of things kids do that have mental, you know, mind defects. And just being a foster parent, you get 90% of the kids are in that predicament, where the 10% just may have been a victim of circumstances, parents died, you know, stuff like that, where the 90% have orders of all types of disabilities, where they doing things to themselves, other people, things they hear, smells they smell, that trigger their mentality to do something against the grain. So, I mean, just being a foster parent alone really helps me on the job, where I'm going to these meetings and getting the definition of what it means when the brain didn't get the full opportunity to develop, you know, and you was led astray by your parents or the people you live with. So it's very important to know in school, because people don't wear a sign on their head to say, you know, I have a problem or this or that. And then like he said, I mean, the school that you went into, I mean, everything got to be channeled to the door that you have to actually literally be buzzed into. So there never should be opportunity to just go up to a door and open it. Even at lunchtime, dealing with a custodian, just taking out the trash, you have a badge. So every time you go out, just use the badge. So it got to be channeled basically everything got to be channeled, just like you would do your home if you didn't want nobody to come in the front door. You would figure out a way to channel it to make them go there if you wasn't there at all. You know what I mean? So that's very important. You know, that can make you nervous if you can just walk in and walk all through the people. You know, so we got a knack for looking at the students. And we had an incident where some students came, you know, we knew them right off the bat. You know, they didn't even get bothered in the first, as soon as they came in the door, they was in the office with Officer Cooper and the principals and me and one of us. Because there's the relationships now, we can see your face, not your clothes. So we knew it right off the bat, like you stood up. Because we hear every day, it's kind of like, you know, you didn't get far. As soon as you came to the door, like, can we help you? So it's like, it's really important to know the kids that go in your building. So that's why it was important for us to tell Mr. Rammer, like, he wanted us to keep us in one spot as long as possible, because it gives you an opportunity to not only know the building, you know every kid. Even though some kids don't talk as much as other kids, but, you know, being there, you get to know the faces, and you know who's hot and who's not. You know?
Thank you. And Bobby brings up a good point, and it's something that we've talked about a lot, and thankfully, I think this year more than any other, even before probably some of the recent incidents, we started hearing this term a lot more, and I'm glad to hear our district taking a more concerted effort towards looking at trauma-informed education and the way that we work with children in our school system. Having also been a foster parent, I know that, you know, that was something that was very, it was repeated often in trainings, just about, you know, how a lot of those children have experienced trauma. Even just being uprooted from a home unexpectedly can be traumatic, and you never know the impact that that's going to have on a child and how that's going to come out in their behavior. So I'm glad to hear that we're thinking about that, and I know that it was in your presentation as well. And I want to say thank you to all of the safety team members, to our facilities folks, to our SROs, for all the work that you do. And I hope that you'll continue to tell us how we can help you, and let us know on some level if you feel safe, because you're the front line for many of these students, both for their safety, but also, as you've shown tonight, not just their safety, but their well-being in general. And it's clear that you care. I think Lisa said that, touched on that very eloquently, but how much you guys care is very clear. And you are the front line. So I hope that you'll tell us how we can help you, and let us know if you feel safe, and if you don't, what can we do to make you feel safer. I think the question that our parent had in the back is probably the $64 million question. Are we doing everything we can? I don't know. I hope that we are. I think that we're going to look at that even more as we go through the school climate, student safety, and discipline committee. And we've already had discussions how we imagine there will be a few spin-off conversations that will need to take place around physical security. We have this conversation every time we build a new building, and what things go in, what things have changed and that we've learned since we built the last building as far as physical security goes. But I think the recent incidents, especially and most prevalently in Parkland, probably just for me, bring home sort of that mortality, that concrete awareness that anything can happen to anyone at any time, and we cannot protect 100% against all eventualities. And I think even in terms of physical security, you heard from some of our own experts right here that there simply is no way to prevent 100% of the way. Are we doing everything we can? I don't know. But we clearly know there's no way to prevent 100% of any eventuality, anything that could happen in one of our buildings. We even have conversations about safety offline where there are things that, workarounds that we have even thought of or mentioned to each other that we would never mention publicly. You just can't protect against. And it's probably complicated to some degree even that our schools are CLCs. And so they're open in the evenings to the community, many of them. And that's something that we have to factor into our safety plan. So I don't mean to editorialize, I just mean to say I want to answer your question with saying I don't know, but I know that it's something we're constantly looking into. I know that it's something that we'll continue to look into through the committee that we formed to kind of take a look at school climate. But I think that what you presented tonight and what these folks have spoken to is that we're definitely making an effort to address things on the front end, which, as someone said, is getting to know the people that are in our building, getting to know the students, building the relationships that hopefully will prevent some of these things from happening or becoming bigger. And my son goes to STEM Middle School, and I've heard Coach Cooley's name even before I met Coach Cooley, and he calls you Coach Cooley. So I know it has an impact on our students and whether or not they feel safe. So thanks again, and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Bravo, can I just add one thing? That would be that I think that is the most ringing endorsement was your last sentence. You have a child in the Akron Public Schools.
Yeah.
I have a child in the Akron Public Schools. Most of us have had graduates, so we believe in it enough that we have our children. Thank you. So I think that's important to say.
Agreed.
That's the most ringing endorsement I can get.
That's someone that's going to have one.
Right.
Some that have had some.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But yours was in school today. Mine was in school today. So.
Yeah. Good point. That's good.
We can do that. So, as you know, on Saturday, we had a special session for the board at 10 North Main. We hope to be our future home, so we have Eric Beach here today who's going to review the state of our plans for 10 North Main in terms of a schematic design, and a couple other people here just in case we need some additional help, but we'll turn it over to Eric.
Brad. Kurt was going to say a word about the programming effort, and then I'll jump right in. And I'll try to keep it brief. That was a fascinating conversation. I too, my kids knew Coach Cooley's name and Officer Deese's name at the STEM Middle School before I knew some of their teachers' names.
Okay. Briefly, this process that you're going to see the results of to date with these what we call FIT plans, this process started 8 years ago when we did a study of various departments in the art building and the administration building to find out how much space we would need to combine both buildings under one roof. And that process involved interviewing department heads and staff to determine needs. That study was updated 2 years ago, and that was the basis for us starting to look at 10 North Main Street 6 months ago, starting 6 months ago, to see how well our needs would fit into this building. And not only that, but how different departments could relate to one another and to the public, given the footprint of the building and how things could fit. That process has been continuing for the last 6 months with additional meetings and conversations with staff, with department heads. 2 weeks ago, we had spent a couple of days with focus groups of employees to get their input. And we feel that this building well serves us. It'll serve our staff well and enable them to better serve the people that both teaching staff and parents and the community that have to do business with us on a regular basis. So I'll turn it over to Eric Beach with Hassan Staub Architects, the ones that are working on developing the design for this building.
Thanks, Fred. just so you can orient yourself here, this is North Main Street. Here's the intersection. This is West Market Street. And this overlooks the park and the valley, Cuyahoga Valley. So there's a large parking area in the back. This is the SUMA building, about 450 parking spaces. There's public parking on this side, and there's some loading dock area here. So this, if you recognize this side here, this is the current retail space for Subway. It's the current retail space here for Einstein Bagels. And this is the current SUMA entrance. So in converting this building to a building that engages the public, one of the most important things is how are we going to get people into the building, the public, into the building to engage with the staff. And so we've created this engagement center, which is in the Einstein Bagel space, where people can come in and meet with specialists who will help them resolve their, what issue are they there for, get them the right forms, help them fill out things online, and in some cases, they will direct the public back into these conference spaces that are right here at the entrance. So there may be people coming from various parts of the building to this central engagement center. But the most important relationship for the way the public, the greatest group that will be working with the public are the security and services department, which is in green here. The other areas on this plan that are in gray are pretty much parts of the building that we can't really change. Plumbing, mechanical spaces, bathrooms, main technology rooms, mail receiving. Let me show you where the entrances are. Public entrance, as I mentioned, is here. The business entrance for the APS will be here. In each location, they'll be met with someone who can provide some screening, find out what they're there for. And then that's a security person, for example, in yellow. And then the staff entrance is here, and this is a loading dock area. So another important part of this floor plan is the space in blue at the back. This is the boardroom, but it also can be used as a training room for when it's not being used as a boardroom. The building has great space between columns, unlike some of the existing school buildings that are we're in a classroom in this situation, but it doesn't always work out, this kind of space for modern offices. But this building works out fantastic for allowing to have a boardroom where you could, I think I'm losing power on this thing, but you can seat between 20 people or, thanks, quite a few more. Look back a little bit. So just have to figure out which was the button. Okay, well, we changed plans. Perfect. Great, I have control now. What I always wanted. So the rest of this plan is, what's important about this
There's
is...
a red line in the middle of it, in the middle of that. Right,
yeah, I see it now.
There you
Thanks.
go.
Thanks. So how does the public get to a board meeting or a conference or a training session that might happen here? They come in the vestibule, the public can go through this public corridor, and what you see there is just some walls that help direct them into these public spaces. It might be a little confusing, but we are showing the underlayment. This light gray is the underlayment of what's already there. A lot of the furniture is coming with the building, which is ideal for a lot of the staff. But we'll also be able to take away some furniture in all the spaces to create common areas for more engagement between staff members. So I think I'll run through the floors really more quickly. I want to spend a little bit of time on the first floor and second floor, and then move through 3, 4, 5 pretty quickly. And then we'll take any questions that you guys have. The second floor is primarily training spaces for staff. There's a lot of ongoing training that's necessary, and this plan probably triples the amount of available space for training. That all the blue areas on the plan are. I'll get it. Yeah, I won't get it. Yeah, I gotta have the right button. Thanks, Ryan.
I'll do this part.
Okay. I don't have control. So I find that I really don't have control, which is really actually the result. These are layouts suggesting various kind of configurations for training rooms. There really isn't. They aren't meant to represent what they all can be, but so there are also a number of different size spaces for between 50 and 60 people, or 28 folks, or you have small breakout rooms. So a lot of these rooms are existing on this level. We're not removing a lot. We're opening up some spaces. This is the most intensive alterations to this area. Teaching and learning in green these are the staff that do the training. Is that correct? If I say that, okay. When a visitor comes to this floor, they come out of this elevator lobby, which is it's required to have that door. They meet someone right here at this welcoming desk to help them get oriented to where they need to go to. And as I understand it, what the district plans to do is make all of these rooms schedulable through electronic calendars so that they can be used for not only for training purposes, but for other functions for the staff, all of the staff of the APS. This will prevent, rooms like this here can allow the large meetings that occur 2 to 3 times a year, or even like a banquet can happen down here. So this setup is kind of like what you have in a hotel, in a conferencing center in a hotel. Thanks, Ryan. Third floor is primarily made up of special education, and I won't read through the other staff areas, but what we try to do is park managers in existing offices, and we have quite a few spaces available for all the staff. I don't believe all the staff are assigned in these. This is just a generic fit plan, meaning we're trying to fit the approximate number of people who are employees into these spaces. Oh, could you go down again? I'm sorry. I wanted to point out that on the third level, we do have some available unassigned space. And we'll try to have some unassigned space on each floor so that as things change in the organization here, that it responds to the APS's needs. Thank you. Fourth floor is primarily the technology services on the bottom of the screen, the treasurer's office, and HR, human resources. And this is similar to when you arrive there. There's someone to help you, a customer service desk, not unlike you'd have if you came to a place where you weren't familiar with where to go, because a lot of folks will be coming in here to drop off technology that needs to be worked on. And here's an example of what we might do is remove a whole bank of these cubes and create an open gathering space for collaborative teamwork, and also creating some kind of wall-less conference areas in a couple of different locations. The fifth floor, top floor, is primarily the superintendent's office, with a lot of the remaining partners in the organization of APS. And a few of these undesignated spaces are being converted to open collaborative spaces. We're calling it a cafe because you might be able to pick up, some coffee and food in these dining areas that are on every floor. There's also a board office located up here. We've relocated that since our Saturday walkthrough to right adjacent to the superintendent's office. That's a very quick summary, but I'd be happy to field questions, or Fred or Ryan Pendleton can answer questions as well. Any specific questions about the public engagement, we'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? We asked a lot of questions on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, I'm glad that I've explained it. I think that as we move forward, we're going to be working with a construction manager to get the best use of the building for the best cost. The construction manager will be responsible for the cost estimating. Mr. Pendleton's provided us with a budget to work with that we can't exceed. We're going to be very tight, as it is, with all the changes that we're planning to this building. But I hope for a successful outcome.
I think we spent a lot of time talking about building relationships tonight too, and clearly we've got a mind towards that as we're building this out with the engagement center on the first floor, with sort of the welcoming kiosks and public support on each of, so going vertically on each of those floors, and really trying to be mindful about how we engage the public when they come in to visit us. We have some really good staff that do that here and at the Ott building, but how much nicer for them to have more support and be able to handle the volume of traffic that comes in on a daily basis. I know it's pretty substantial, so thanks for keeping that in mind. It's much appreciated.
I could also mention that as APS is going towards a more paperless operation system, it will help that this building has great technology to make that a reality. And it also has things like the recycle bins at every floor to help reduce reduce the waste. There's a bank on every floor.
And hopefully a screen that's a little bit higher.
Yeah. You're sitting in the front row at the theater there. That's great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you. Prepare yourself for the lights.
Like a dozen police.
I'm just always happy when you sign through.
Does Eric still man the scanner?
He does. I just texted him.
I'm addicted to this. And I love to listen to it on the equipment. Okay. I was thinking we should open the presentation. Superintendent's recommendations, first regular meeting minutes. Oh, yes, it is. All right. So we need approval of the meeting minutes for the regular meeting, February 26, 2018. So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Superintendent's recommendations.
Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 30 personnel recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the personnel recommendations. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
And before moving forward, I'd just like to point out item number 30, and that's the death of one of our employees, Ann Herring, who passed away on Saturday, February 24th. She was an employee for 23 years as a teacher and before retiring in 2014, then coming back as a substitute teacher for the past 4 years.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 1 motion and 6 resolutions on the consent agenda. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Any questions, discussion?
Yeah, just item number 5 and number 6 for that matter. And I just want to recognize 2 of our great partners here in the city of Akron. Consent item number 5 is us accepting our, I guess, donation from Akron Children's Hospital for North High School campus. First of what will be 5 installments, I believe, from them for that endeavor for our first career academy at North High School. And item number 6 is an annual, I guess, grant that we received from the city of Akron for after-school programs and such. So I want to thank both of those entities for their partnership with us.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
And finally, Mr. President, I have before me for your consideration 8 business affairs recommendations. These recommendations are in proper form, and I move their approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion on business affairs? Just a quick note on item number 2. We asked earlier, the Safe Schools training that's mentioned in there is more OSHA related, not safety in the sense that we were discussing tonight. So, any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, abstaining from item 7, please.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Superintendent's report.
Just wanted to say, on that Monday event took me by complete surprise, and my staff is going to pay dearly for that because I don't like surprises. But I really do appreciate the sentiment, and Mrs. Mansfield is right. And Dr. McWilliams Woods, who knows me all too well because she can repeat some of the things that I say, like we have a lot of work to do, which we really do. And it's not just around, our college and career academies. It's also how do we educate our kids in, an environment where we do have valid concerns about their safety. And at the end of the day, it is about relationships. That's what's going to get us through this. We can't always rely on technology to solve our problems. Sometimes it's about the interactions that people, have with each other and with our kids. So, just know that you have a bunch of staff dedicated around the edge of this room and out in every building in our district who are really concerned about that.
Thank you. I gave my report earlier, treasurer's report.
Yes, thank you. Since I don't report to the superintendent, I would take my time to talk about anything on that. One of my long-term mentors and friends had always taught me that a superintendent's recommendation resonates for up to 7 years. As you heard the presentation tonight about building relationships, can you imagine? A few years ago, the state of Ohio average stay for a superintendent was just over 3 years for larger cities. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the relationships that David has built in and out every day? And I think we're so fortunate, we certainly are so fortunate when I look around the room. In my tenure, I've been with 5 different superintendents in just under 15 years. So I'm extremely fortunate to work alongside of him, to work under his direction, consider him a friend. But really thankful that you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. The resolution tonight, I just wanted to highlight, I did get a couple questions about the amounts and rates. The amounts and rates resolution for your consideration is the annual process in which we validate the Summit County fiscal officers' dollars and cents, so to speak, with the millage rates and the dollars that they collect. So we verify those rates, and those rates actually get picked up and put into our 5-year forecast. This is one step a part of our budget. So I just wanted you to know this is an annual process. We have to pass this resolution every April. And then on Finance Committee, even though we haven't met yet, we'll report in detail next time. We did make a recommendation to the Board Finance Committee about our reimbursement. I know in their personnel recommendations, we tend to abstain on a lot of items. So the recommendation that we're going to make through Finance Committee and vet a little bit further is that at Finance Committee, we review so that it's a publicly noticed meeting. It's part of the Sunshine Record. So we'll put it as an attachment, and therefore, if you want, and it's presented by the Finance Committee, you won't have to make those abstentions anymore, but it'll still be a permanent part of the record. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, legal contracts and board policy.
Coming to the board for third and final reading and request for approval is revised bylaw section 0130 functions, revised bylaw section 0140 membership, revised bylaw section revised bylaw section 0150 organization, revised bylaw section 0160 meetings, and revised policy 2260 non-discrimination and equal access educational opportunity. I request approval.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion on any of these policies or bylaws before they're approved? Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Finance and capital management.
No report.
Instructional policy and student achievement.
No report.
Any unfinished business to come before this board?
I think I failed to mention on our behavior committee, our second community representative, Bishop Joey Johnson. I don't believe we had him lined up at the last board meeting, and it was reminded me as we talked about him here this evening. So we are actually convening a organizational meeting this coming Friday with Jeremy Lyle, Christy Lyle, Bishop Johnson, and the rest of the committee. At that point in time, we're going to discuss whom we're going to invite from the community for the community discussion. Obviously, all the board members will be invited once we get this taken care of. So that'll be our first meeting with everybody, and then we'll have more to share in the very near future.
Thank you. Any other unfinished business? New business. We're going to discuss that in executive first. Or that's part of
No, this one we can vote on. This is housekeeping cleanup. At the previous board meeting, we did vote on the assumption of leases, addendum to the contract. We're going back, and just as a cleanup, we are stating that assumption of leases in the purchase agreement. This doesn't change any of the terms, anything like that, other than the assumption of the lease in which Sumacare has extended for up to 2 months.
Any questions on that? Hearing none, we do need a motion and a second to approve the resolution, the first amendment to the real estate purchase agreement.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion, comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Lasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you.
And pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G2, to consider to the purchase or sale of property. I am looking for a motion to recess into executive session.
Second?
I'll let you sort that out. But we do, somewhere in there, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion before executive session? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Reverend Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mrs. Baylor?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Mrs. Slasher?
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right.
That
we'll
was
take
great.
5 minutes.